Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Ad Age's Publishers panel, where we have a brand, an agency, and a technology partner provide us perspective and thought leadership on a critical topic facing the industry as a whole. I'm Josh Golden, the president and publisher for Ad Age, and today we're going to speak about keeping marketing human, and as close as we can, even during this time of social distancing. So whatever your marketing strategy was at the beginning of the year, there's no chance that it looks similar to how it looked at the start. So while messaging and media plans are in a constant state of change, there's one thing that remains constant: driving business results. We'll speak with a few panelists today to uncover what new methods they've been using to drive consumer engagement, and specifically, as we've seen digital marketing grow during the pandemic with many consumers still at home, marketers leaning on new technologies to reach consumers. Social distancing, however, continues to create both challenges and opportunities within the anonymity of the internet, and we're going to talk about both those challenges and the opportunities as we have our panel join us. Today, I'm joined by Saif Kamasia, who is the Group Director of Programming and Insights from INNOCEAN Canada, Lisa Morris, Vice President and Head of North American Personal Health for Philips North America, and Mark Schlosser, Head of Brand Partnerships for White Ops. Everyone, welcome, and thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Josh. Hi, everyone.
I should mention, we almost had I almost wanted to do this in person because you're right across the street from me, maybe we could get together, but no.
We'll wave outside the window.
We'll wave. Mark and Saif, thank you so much for joining us as well. You're not neighbors, but you're close on the screen. I'm gonna
close enough, I wish.
Yes, absolutely. Before we jump in, I'll make certain to invite you, all the folks that are watching, anywhere in the world, just to say where you're watching from, and I'll see if we can do some shout outs a little bit later. But let's get this rolling. Lisa, I'm going to go to you first. Sure. So maybe you can help set the stage for our viewers. I'm guessing there was a massive shift that you had happen in your marketing efforts since the beginning of the pandemic, and with digital becoming more and more critical. What changes, did you make originally, and then what are you continuing to see and how people are engaging with you?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I mean, we all know that life is never stable and never the same, and certainly not at this point. And what we've really done is tried to be agile and follow our consumers where they are. Their journey has changed, their shopping journey, their exploration journey. So definitely online, but also trying to really find relevant content, keep them engaged. They've got a lot more time to spend online and on our site, and so really engaging with them has how we've continued to think about new ways to keep them engaged.
And what pressure are you seeing, regarding specific, performance marketing? Have you been leaning into that at all?
Absolutely. I mean, we all look at the metrics, but now we've got to look at the metrics daily, if not hourly, and how we measure our campaigns. We found a lot more time spent on site but with that has come increased conversion, because you would think with increased traffic, you could be diluting your conversion, but obviously more and more people wanting to shop online, we're having a double win, which is really exciting. It's really escalating our D2C business as well.
I can only imagine, given the amount of changes that are happening in the space. Saif and Mark, Saif, we'll go to you first. How are you seeing consumers' behavior change during this time?
I think the biggest thing that we've noticed is that multi-screen is a lot more important tactic now, because people are within the same Wi-Fi, within the same connection. And because more people are spending time at home and you show them a TV ad or a video ad, the chances of them making an action is a lot more immediate than it used to be in the customer journey before. So video, for example, used to play a very predominant awareness driver for us, but now we're really seeing actions that come out of video. So our tactics are, to Lisa's point, the customer journey has changed, and a lot of it has become more digital, and it's kind of tightened up a little bit.
And Mark?
Yeah, and at White Ops, we're in this fascinating world that marries together cybersecurity and advertising. So, quite different from a lot of folks that are listening to this call and even on the panel. And, overall, of course, we see, a much more of a push into brands going directly to the consumer, doing a lot more online, and asking consumers to interact on their site, to drive much more traffic to their site, with the goal of actually having a full purchase funnel and having that full marketing driver directly from site, But when we actually think of consumer at White Ops, we're actually thinking of like who the adversary is. That's who we're actually targeting a lot of times. And from that world, during this COVID period, we've seen a few different things. We've seen, with this sort of economic downfall of a lot of people getting laid off and a lot of furloughs, with this sort of combination of people just being bored during this period, as a sort of former FBI agent on our team would say, the most dangerous thing during this time period is bored hackers who are looking to actually make money.
Oh my God, that's such a frightening thought right now. The amount of people that are bored and at home, and it sounds like I'm just curious, Mark, is that behavior growing right now with people doing things that are not necessarily helpful or honest? I'm guessing.
Yeah, and we see a lot of different things, and even on the dark webs, we see people that are looking to get into things like hacking, especially areas like ad fraud, where they've been traditionally very lucrative. And, but we're seeing shifts in the behavior of what ad fraud actually is, where traditionally people have thought about it just from the programmatic world. And now what we're seeing is a lot more marketers are driving traffic to their site, through things like search and social and affiliate traffic, which traditionally haven't been measured. They're trying to target those types of things, and things like filling out lead forms. We've seen being targeted in industries like automotive and healthcare and insurance, and even CPG brands, which are trying to drive loyalty programs.
Interesting. Lisa, I have to say this for you and Safe. I have a question as a past brand marketer. When I would look at data that would come in from the reports that we have done, I don't know. There was always like, here's one company that measured it one way, and then it was like, well, here's us measuring it ourselves, and there was this disparity. It's like, well, this what we reported and what's being measured, and there's the art and the science of this. Are you sometimes seeing that disparity? Lisa, I'll go to you first. Do you see sometimes that disparity, and then do you now that you've been exposed to this topic, I'm assuming you're familiar with it. Do you start to question, like, is that real human beings or is that not human beings?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We've just become more aware, absolutely, in the last weeks. What we've really decided to do is we've got to trust our instincts. When we first look at some of the data, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, time spent on site increased, by times 10. Now, we know people have more time, but is that real? So we did start to dig deeper and try and understand, is it really now 16 minutes? Are our articles really that interesting? And some of the case we're finding absolutely, because they're moving around and you can see that. But in other cases, then are people just stopping and leaving the site or going and making a coffee? There's lots of instincts that we're trying to work through.
I can tell you from personal experience, when I did my Sonicare review, I spent some time.
Thank you.
On the site. Can you give me a little bit of insight into the difference between a measurement problem and actually potentially, what's unsavory and perhaps even illegal activity that's happening online? Like, I'm just curious.
That's.
Let me ask the question: what percentage of traffic right now is actually bot based?
It's a good question. From what we've seen approximately over the last 1 year or so, about 40% of our traffic has been bot-based. And what we've seen change a lot is that these bots are getting more sophisticated and they're coming across all different types of channels. So traditionally, we'd see it more in the programmatic world when we're buying open market. But then when we started getting into more private deals and more curated content, it started going less. But as COVID has hit, and also the advancement of artificial intelligence, one of the things that we say internally is that COVID has just fast forwarded a lot of inevitable things. One of them was people spending more time at home and not having to go to the office and the death of 9 to 5. And then, sorry, just to kind of get back to the question that you mentioned earlier about the discrepancy between the data, that's the bane of our existence, but it's also where all the answers lie. And what happened with us is we went and looked at Google Analytics, and we were seeing that there was a massive spike of visits that were coming in from a specific channel. But when we look at Campaign Manager, it was 1/10 of those numbers. And then once we start looking deeper in, we start noticing the 40% of the traffic that was coming in was spending less than 0.01 seconds. So like, why would a user spend less than 0.01 seconds? And this dominates 40% of the traffic. We took another level deeper, and we found out that most of that traffic was not even located in Canada. A lot of it was located in remote cities in the United States, cities who have had past records of bot farms existing there. And then after that, we kind of looked at one level deeper. We found out that 99% of the traffic was on a Linux device. Nobody really uses a Linux. It was on a Chrome device, and that enabled us to kind of build our own definition of what a bot traffic looks like. And those are the things now that we have to make sure we mitigate across all of our platforms, even if that means taking an additional measure of excluding Linux, excluding that specific Chrome browser. But yeah,
that's amazing.
There's always truth into data. Yeah.
40% for me, Mark. I mean, obviously this is your business, so I'd like to think, I don't know, maybe I'm endlessly positive about, that's just sometimes a measurement mistake, but it seems like there's actually bad actors that are doing something. How can we, what can we do to stop it?
Yeah, I mean, iPod is a $6.4 billion industry, right?
Yeah, it's the multi-million dollars, and Eve, our takedown of Eve, which is a reading for anyone that wants to look at, was one of the first times that there was actually criminal ramifications, and it was sort of built out of a Hollywood movie where people in non-extraditable countries went on a surfing trip in Bali, and the FBI landed and made arrests, if you want to sort of picture it that way. But there's so much of this going on where there's multi-million dollar organizations. Think of it the same way that there's a CEO all the way down to 5 layers below that, with millions of dollars of infrastructure. And there's things that you can catch, and Lisa was mentioning some great sort of precautions they take with homegrown solutions. And then there's the much more challenging, those users that are designed to look and act exactly like a human, click on ads. It's no longer all happening from a specific IP address. They're literally designed, this malware is designed to look and act like a human and perform all the behaviors of a human, so that you think when you're making optimizations, and then when someone enters into your data pool and you're investing, retargeting efforts against them, that you think that that's actually a human, but they're never going to get to the end of that purchase funnel. You're just going to waste sort of a whole lifetime value against it until that point.
And then that data ends up being staying in your database or in a client's database, and then there's some sort of charges for just keeping those human or whatever data alive from just a database management perspective. I have another question for you, Mark, but I'm going to quickly do some shout outs for folks that are watching all around the world today. Here we go. I pre-apologize for all mispronunciation, so please forgive me now. Gisela from Texas, Michael from Washington, D.C., Ikom from Uzbekistan, Irving from the DR, Romain from South Africa, and Nalini from India. Welcome, all of you, and thank you for watching internationally. Oh, also someone from Turkey and New Delhi. So, Mark, just want to quickly pivot back to you if I can. Is there some magical tool? I'm certain White Ops has this, but from a more generic perspective, how would Lisa know that her data is being compromised?
Yeah, and that's
what Saif just mentioned about the 40%. As a previous brand marketer, it makes me shudder. It makes me think, wait, is it possible that almost 50% of my data that I'm pushing, or ads that I'm pushing out there, are actually being delivered to a non-human? So it's really jarring.
Yeah, no, and look, we're not, there's so many efforts that marketers could take today, and as we were talking about COVID, marketers want to be as efficient as possible today, because their shareholders, even though their budgets are being cut, they still have the same exact expectations that they had in the past. So being effective is the most important thing. So, we work with our partners on what are the manual things that you can actually do via homegrown solutions. And then we collaborate with their teams of what actually requires technology. And then how do you actually prevent that from day one all the way into that media buying tactics that you're actually doing, all the way down funnel, from ensuring your leads are actually human, to ensuring the analytics that you're making optimizations against are human, and ensuring that only humans are actually entering into your data pool, much of which requires technology due to the sophistication of the bots today.
Fascinating. And Saif, can you tell me a little bit more about how, what I guess business results are directly being impacted? How do you measure what the pools of, there's this people who are real, and this is the, kind of the non-human pool? How are business results being impacted?
So I think the biggest impact is the how it clouds judgment on the numbers. So obviously, to Mark's point, when you're talking to shareholders, they're always looking at year over year and how we trended over the past years to make the decisions. And if your conversion rates used to be at a 15% and all of a sudden they drop to a 5% without you knowing that, you think that there's a drop in performance, and then you're too stuck trying to figure out what the situation is, that it might lead to cuts from budgets in the wrong places or places that are actually doing well. So kind of detecting that is a key thing for us to determine what the business results are. Once we've detected that, there's a lot of retroactive stuff that we have to do. But for business results, specifically, and how they've kind of evolved as you get deeper into this, is that you start becoming a lot more deterministic in terms of the breadcrumbs. Because now, especially with COVID, there's more digital adoption. With that, we've got more breadcrumbs to identify what a consumer behavior looks like. There's also a lot of threads that support that in terms of ITP and how and addressability of a unique person. You kind of have to build your own customer journey, build your own DMP, and then we're honestly, we're in a new era of measurement that we've never had before. So there's a lot of things that we can do, but it starts off by weeding out things that are irregular.
Lisa, can I ask, just curious? I'm curious about the measurement that you do based on the. I'm assuming, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, that you've more heavily leaned into digital, to help grow your, specifically your brand. What does your analytics measurement infrastructure look like? I'm certain so many folks who are watching right now are like, gosh, I'd love to have what Lisa has as a dashboard.
Yeah, I mean, we have several dashboards, but we certainly look at, the very basics and then start to dig deeper. Really, traffic, we start with traffic, and those numbers have absolutely, skyrocket, which is great. Of course, it's also because the limited dollars that we have spent, we've spent all digitally. So we're increased our traffic views to our site. And then, as I said earlier, we're looking at time spent on site, where they are in the funnel. We obviously are following the consumers through the funnel and then all the way through to conversion. There's a myriad of other things, but we're really trying to keep very much also towards some of those leading indicators so that we can optimize along the way. We're trying to get more and more into real-time optimization as much as possible.
Is there anything that you've done during this time period where you've been a little bit surprised by, wow, I wasn't expecting that to sort of take off the way it had? I'm certain many other brand marketers who are watching would value that insight, that something that you changed. And maybe all of you can answer this question, but I'll start with you, Lisa. Something that you changed during this time that's been a fascinating way to sort of that you weren't expecting.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we're right on the cusp, right? We're personal health. So we're a health-related organization overall, and we are on the consumer side of it. So things like, I can tell you that having the great Sonicare brand, nearly every consumer in North America ordered a new brush head in the month of March and April. When we typically expect people, we tell them to change every 3 months. They typically change twice a year on average. Every single person bought a brush head. And we're watching that to now, it's 3 months later, we're expecting the rise again. And we're certainly reminding consumers that it's 3 months, they need to. So anything sterilization, our Avent brand, basically anyone buying a baby bottle is buying a sterilizer. So it's really thinking through the health journey and what you have to offer consumers that are health related. It's more a reminder. We are absolutely not into using scare tactics, but consumers are coming to us for that. Of course, we have Norelco brand clippers at home. I can tell you 600
I've had 5 haircuts. 5.
Yes. So, and we're actually talking to consumers that a lot of them are happy and plan to continue to do at home, which makes sense because there's also only 50% capacity at barbers and hairdressers. So really consumer behavior is changing and we need to all follow them, be agile, and really understand and try and engage with them. That's our goal.
That's awesome, Lisa. Safe, can you give us some insight, something that you think that was a surprise that you weren't expecting to see based on this time?
Yeah, so the company that I work for, INNOCEAN Canada, we are owned by the Hyundai Motor Group. So I work on Genesis, Kia, and Hyundai. And when the kind of this period hits, we had two brands, the big ones, Kia and Hyundai. Hyundai went off the market and didn't spend at all and kind of put all of their marketing on pause. Versus Kia, they went and they doubled down. And with that, we were like, it's all or nothing. We had a car launch. And then during that period, even though the entire sales industry was going down, it was a very tough March, we were like, no, let's just forge ahead and just continue to kind of test creative, and let's understand what these consumers look like so we can adopt our tactics. By the time we rolled up into April, Kia had the best month that it's ever had in its history. The industry as a whole kind of dropped by 45%. They only dropped by 4%. I'm not saying this is primarily because of marketing at all. There was a lot of really good offers that they had in market. But and now I remember there was, before when this all happened, a lot of people were saying, hey, during a recession, it's a time to spend. It's not a time to not spend. And I was like, no, like if you have a business, you want to be conservative. And I think I was wrong. This is the time to kind of test out new things, to double down, especially when the competitors are dropping down, especially if you're a challenger brand. So I was really surprised at those numbers and how well Kia did just by, continuing to go through when everybody else took a pause.
Interesting. Mark, I have a double-barreled question for you, so forgive me for giving you two. I'm curious about things that you change that you've seen change from a data perspective, but also, I'm curious, what's one effective step a brand marketer or any agency that's watching this to help mitigate that number that Saif mentioned, which just freaks me out, 40% of the effort. What's one step we could mitigate that? So what's something you're seeing change, and then what's one step or multiple steps that marketers should take to mitigate their marketing efforts aren't being misused?
Yeah, and it's a great question, and folks like humans like Saif are just they do an amazing job of using data and analytics. And we've seen, data and analytics really be such sort of a stronger point of business and how they actually operate their marketing in such a more efficient way than it ever was in the past. Folks have always tried to, forgive the sort of the think and act more like DTC brands. Even more traditional brands have moved in that direction, and it sort of really accelerated that growth, and using what we've seen is really using white ops as a central data point, and understanding that when we have to shift from sports sponsorships on TV to a much heavier digital spend, ensuring from day one that that's the most effective way, and that there's actually a chance to reach humans, because human eyeballs on the internet, they're like diamonds. There's always a shortage of supply of them. And even though there's a lot more human eyeballs on the internet today, all that's actually doing is it's slightly decreasing the price of a diamond. It's still a diamond. And so overall, our partners just want to ensure that what they think they're doing, they're actually doing on the internet.
Interesting. I have one curiosity, only because I've seen everyone start to sort of do things that are slightly different during this time where we've been working from home. So I'll go around the horn on this one. Saif, I'll start with you. What's the most fascinating thing you bought online during the pandemic? And then you each can answer your. By the way, I'm sorry, I'll offer first. Mine is a pool. I bought a 15-foot diameter pool with it's 30 inches deep. But my kids go in and they get wet. So at least you could come over anytime. All of you could. I'm sorry, Saif, to you. What's the most interesting thing you've gotten that's like crazy?
Well, I'm waiting for it to arrive. I wish I had it so I can put it on now. But a good friend of my group of friends is having his bachelor party in a few weeks from now. And we were like, how are we going to have a socially distant bachelor party? So what we did is we bought masks that look like his face. So that when we're wearing our sunglasses, we don't look like him. So it's hard to beat that one, but yeah.
Oh my God, that's a good one. That his betrothed should come over and have to select from afar, like, which one's my actual husband? Lisa, what did you buy that's crazy?
I guess I've become a subscription fiend. So I subscribe that you can do an escape room with your family in your house, and it arrives once a month, which is really fun and exciting. Keeps us all engaged. Takes about 4 hours, so it's a good spend of money. And then the adult side is a cocktail subscription. So, and if you do both on the same night, you're going to have a great time.
That's a great one. Mark, anything, can you beat that one? An escape room and a liquor subscription. Jeez.
I won't bore you with my wine subscriptions because that's for another day. I will change the question to what I've brought into my home. And 5 weeks ago, my wife and I were blessed to bring in our son, Alex Thomas. And so we have a COVID baby, and it's been sort of the greatest gift and the greatest sort of thing you could ever welcome into the world.
Wow. Well, that one does win. You having a child. That's awesome. Congratulations. Safe, Lisa, Mark, thank you all so much for joining me for the Publishers Panel. What a great insight you offered. I'm so appreciative of your time and your support of Ad Age.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome, guys. Thanks again.
Bye.
Take care.